What's going on, everyone? This is going to be a pretty straight to the point type of video, but this is going to be about how to become an elite player, how to become elite in your league in any field, specifically your league. So I want to start off by defining some of these terms here. When I say elite, I mean being the kind of person that they need you more than you need them. So we'll say depended upon. And I want to go ahead and preface the fact that this is about business more than like social dynamics or I'm speaking symbolically here. This is not about sports by any means. There are similarities in how this works to that, so that's why I'm using some of this jargon. But this is about business and sort of specifically being an employee of that business. And this can be applied to being a self-employed, an entrepreneur, something like that, because this is about becoming an elite player in your league. So that's up to you what that league is. If you're in the restaurant business, then maybe it's being the top most dependable person in that specific restaurant aside from the boss. So let's go back to defining what it means to be elite. So dependent upon, bringing in the most value, put a greater than sign, and then I would say that the third one is respect, how respected you are in that environment. And so essentially the way a business operates is they provide something of value, whether that's a product or a service, and then they get money for that. And you, as an employee, you bring value to the business, and they pay you money for that. So essentially, how much value you bring to the business, which they determine is how much value they get overall, it comes back this way. That's one factor of it, but it's not the main factor. I'm just showing you sort of how this dynamic works. So these three things are what it means to be in the elite group. That means you're probably going to be sitting in on meetings that other people won't be invited to. You might be closer to higher up positions socially, things like that, which that opens up a lot of avenues for you. So my experience is I'm not some sort of millionaire. I'm not some, in retrospect, in comparison, I'm only speaking about my experiences going from a dishwasher, I was bussing tables in restaurants, working my way through becoming a server. Then I worked my way up into the kitchen. Then I worked my way into becoming a bartender at another restaurant, which led me to becoming a bar manager at another restaurant. And now I've left that industry and I've been a professional artist and tattoo artist for 2 years now. And I would say that in every position that I've been in, I may have started, like I said, I started off washing dishes. That could be considered like the bottom rung of that business. Even though, in my opinion, a dishwasher brings a lot of value to the restaurant. But that's a tangent. So I'm pretty much going to be talking about how I moved my way up through the restaurant industry and to a point that I was satisfied with the position that I was in, the money I was making at the time. And, then when I was ready to enter a different field, I did so. But I entered higher leagues progressively. So we'll say the field here, now that we're continuing with the definitions, the fields, say restaurants. Specifically in my local area. And I want to say that you will never be the elite of a field. You can only be the elite of your league in a field. The fields, the vastness of this world, there will always be someone that's doing more than you or in a better position than you, or it doesn't matter. That's too large of a comparison. So we scale it down to league, and the field is just so we know like what the relation is. So we're talking about restaurants here. I was a local restaurant. I started out as a dishwasher, right? And I was bussing tables. Pause. All right. That was the lowest paying position in the restaurant. And one of the perpetuating cycles of people in that position is that because the pay is low, their perceived value is also low. And because of that, they're more likely to be less dependable, already said, less value, and less respected because, let's be honest, in business, money and value sort of determine how respected you are. So there's certain traits and certain things that you can do to actually increase your value, which will slowly increase your pay in any position. And eventually, the person you become by doing those things can lead you to higher positions. And that's how this sort of map goes. So here's what I sort of did. I worked harder than anyone else that was doing this with me, right? That was my initial decision, my initial choice. And that I will say, the thing that you're going to have to do, it's always going to come down to action and taking action. This isn't some hoopla of delusional self-belief, just, believe that you're that person. This isn't about arrogance. This is about truly increasing your value in the workplace, increasing how you're viewed as an integral part of the system, and then becoming someone who gets the opportunities that other people don't get in that league. Okay, so when it comes to positions that are labor oriented, you kind of have to be someone who can outwork everyone. And you're going to have to do research on whatever your position is to figure out the most efficient and effective ways of doing your job. The more efficient and effective you can become, I highly recommend reading 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Listen, if you're going to be paid like shit, you might as well figure out the quickest path to that. So learning how to become efficient and effective will tremendously increase your value. So what happened to me was, as I did that and became more efficient and more effective, eventually there were days when I was the only one working as a dishwasher or a busboy. And because of that, I got double the tip out. So that right there increased my pay. Now, something that you have to understand is every time that you increase your pay in a company, that means they're paying you more. Even if it's something like tips, in their mind, they're paying you more. And the more money that you get paid by that business, the more value they're expecting you to bring to it. And what they mean by that is handling more of a workload. So you're going to have to constantly work on becoming efficient and effective as an overall disposition as a person. That just searching for the most efficient and effective ways of taking care of your job, it just needs to become a standard mode of operation for you. All right, so here's what happened. Eventually, the workload became a little bit ridiculous to me compared to what the pay was, but they were not willing to increase my pay because every position has a ceiling. And once you hit that ceiling, no matter what you do, you can't increase your perceived value, which won't increase your income, which also won't move you higher up on the ladder. So certain positions, they can only go so far. And that's when you have to figure out a way to now become, put yourself in a position that has a higher ceiling. So from there, I became a server, I believe. Might have become, I'm just gonna kind of make it quicker. So I became a server from there. Now, one thing about the higher you go, the more perceived responsibility you have, because you're bringing in more value for the business, which means if you mess up, there's a greater fall for the business. If a dishwasher doesn't show up, so they lose $40 that day, or so if a dishwasher doesn't show up, yeah, their business might fall. I'm sorry, I'm tripping on my words. If the dishwasher doesn't show up, they will get backed up in the dishes, but their perceived value as a worker they don't bring in the same value that a server brings in. So when a server doesn't show up, the business perceives that as losing money, which means you have a higher responsibility because you bring in more money. You also are seen as losing money if you're not dependable. So the steps I took as a server, one, accepting radical responsibility. The thing is, it's not about who doesn't make any mistakes. It's about being the person who is the first to come up with a solution. So anytime something happened, I would take radical responsibility action to solve whatever needed to be solved. Not my table, still my problem, I'll help. Most people have the mindset of, if it's not part of their immediate duty, it's not their duty at all. But the more you understand that every business is an ecosystem, the more you get put in the rooms with the other people who understand that. And so by taking action like that, anytime I could help anywhere, a little bit more respect from the people who I want to earn respect from. You're not just looking to be respected by everyone. Eventually, there will be that, but you don't need, some people will intentionally not respect you, and no matter what you do, their MO is to just not respect you. That's fine. That's what I'll put right here. Elite people in leagues have boundaries as well, and that leads to more respect. So taking a massive action, solution-oriented, and then becoming the most knowledgeable out of all. So now this is the league that I'm in. So that's the field. This is the league. This is a league. All right. So knowing what you're doing, knowing about what you're doing, knowing the field that you're in, knowing the league that you're in will put you miles ahead. So as a server, I just pretty much continued exhibiting these traits that the elite people I noticed had. So I was always dependable, but also because I knew things, because I always sprung to action with solutions, I was depended upon as a server. My perceived value, not just monetarily, but as an actual person, steady increased as I increased my knowledge and my action. Of course, staying efficient and effective the whole time. And eventually, just by doing that, being someone that sprung to action and knew my shit, I began making the most money as a server. And I was given more work, more opportunities to make more money. Now, one thing that I want to talk about being respected is trust and truth. You need to be the kind of person that who you are on the inside is who they see on the outside. So if you're a good person, it's because you're a good person. It's not that you have sinister thoughts inside and then you're putting on this mask because you are trying to manipulate some sort of social dynamic. That will absolutely come back to create challenges, not just for you, but for everyone else. And that's the wrong way to look at this. This is to bring value to everything, to raise and expand everything, because you have the capability to be that person. And that's really what all of this is about. This is all actually symbolism for life. It's all about expansion and then lifting everyone, increasing the value for everyone and everything involved in this ecosystem. But that's another topic. So you have to be the kind of person that people trust. If you're taking action and knowing these things so that you can get over on people, or so that you can becoming an elite player in your league is not about being a better person than anybody. It's just being someone who's capable of sitting in these rooms and being part of the bigger picture involved in business. So being a trustworthy person, someone that everyone can trust, that you're in an alignment with the things that you say, with the way that you act. It doesn't mean that you're not going to make mistakes, but it means that you are who you are. You know, the way that they perceive you is who you are, and it's in a way that has good intentions for everyone involved. And so that builds trust. And when you're someone that they trust, you will increase your respect, and you will increase the value that you bring to the business, because you will also be someone that is depended upon, because not everyone is looking to be a trustworthy person. That's not a top priority for them, but it is an attribute that has worked tremendously for me, worked absolute wonders for me. People will go out of their way to help you if they trust you. Okay, and part of establishing trust is being a person of truth. I don't mean that harsh, mean truth. I mean that you're, once again, not wearing a mask. So if something's bothering you, you're going to say it. If you like something, if you want to compliment somebody, you're going to say it and you're going to mean it. If you know a better solution, you're going to say it. And you're not going to be the type of person who goes behind someone's back or in private. That's not who you are. So trust and truth, they go hand in hand. But those two will take you quantum leaps up the ladder, especially when you establish trust and you're willing to be speaking truth to those who are in these elite rooms here. So basically, I just applied all of these things over and over again. And basically, this is how it's worked out for me. All right, so you notice how wide that circle is getting from right here? Because what happens is, as you move up, your field of opportunity expands and you move past the limits of your league, of your field. Basically, you become almost fluid, because these are like, I guess, rare. I don't really know how to explain it. I mean, I'm just speaking from my personal experience. This is what I've applied, and I've moved from basically such a small little life, literally a busboy, dishwasher, to I got to the point where I could work any position in the restaurant that I was in. I was the highest paid worker for their like hourly pay, plus I was making the highest tips. I had what I would call fluidity. I reached the state in that field, in my local restaurants, where I could work any position that I wanted to work. I worked any schedule that I wanted to work, and I could go to any restaurant and get a job at any restaurant I wanted to. That's the point that I got to. And I put it down for something else, because that field for me had a ceiling here, and also where it could go, I just wasn't interested in as a career. I do want to go back to one thing. When it comes to your truth and trust, that goes hand in hand with, hand in hand, I guess, with you getting the truth from other people and being able to trust other people. You can't just give and give and give. That's where boundaries come in. And I just want to say that you will never get in these elite rooms if you are a pushover. People will test you just to see what kind of person you are. And that's why you have to be good at saying no, at having boundaries. Part of my fluidity was my rigidity. I once got in a confrontation, I guess, with a manager because I have a personal policy that I don't work Thanksgiving. And they had a policy that everyone who works at that restaurant has to work Thanksgiving. It's trivial, it's silly, but I held firm on that, and they had to find someone else. But you know what? They could not do anything about it. They couldn't fire me because I was the bar manager, and most days I was bringing in more money than the whole restaurant. And because I was the bar manager, I already had a title of respect. It's easy to find another dishwasher. It's fairly easy to find another server, but a good bar manager who's depended upon and brings that kind of value, that's not easy to find. And then in that position, I had boundaries, and every time I established a boundary, it actually brought me closer to these elite rooms, because I'm someone you can actually trust to be in my truth. You can't push me over. And if you can't push me over, that means when it comes time for us to have a hard conversation to help this business move and become and expand, I'm gonna be truthful about it. But you can best believe that I know what I'm talking about. But essentially, this is the point you want to get to if you want to become an elite player. And don't confuse that with being a manager. Even though I was the bar manager, I came up with that title. I was just hired to come in and redo their whole bar program. That's how fluid I was. I just came in because they knew they know what I'm like, and they just said, you know, there's your bar, help us out. And I just said, okay, I'm the bar manager, just to give myself a title. I wasn't even paid like the other workers. It was a completely custom setup for me that I negotiated with the owner himself. That's the type of elite player that I'm talking about. And you can take that into any field, any industry, at any level. So all I'm going to say is remember that whatever you're in, whatever you're doing, your purpose is to bring value. And you need to figure out what increases that value. Knowledge, action, trust. Those will increase your value tremendously. And when you start entering rooms with the other elite people, the bosses, the CEOs, your life will open up like this. And that's all relative. That's all relative, because for me, I was on food stamps. I had to cook all my food on a hot plate that I plugged into the wall. So yeah, I still drive a 2012 Honda. I'm very proud of the fact that I bought that car and paid it off. So it's all relative. To me, that's a huge expansion. Where I'm at, I went from being on food stamps and cooking on a hot plate to having the fluidity to just be put behind a bar and told, help us out. That's elite in that league, in that field. That's an elite player. And now I'm in a new industry. I'm an artist. I'm a tattoo artist, and this is already the path that I'm on. But this is enough information for today. So I hope that suits you well.